Hello everyone, my name is Feeper, and today I'll be discussing my thoughts on Final Fantasy's newest tank, the Gunbreaker. So after playing Gunbreaker in level 80 dungeons and some of the extreme primals, I wanted to make a quick video about how I think it plays and how it feels as a job. Is it fun, is it overpowered, and how does it compare to their tanks in the game? Keep in mind that this isn't a guide for the job, this is just a brief overview and my thoughts. And without any further ado, let's jump on in. So first, let's talk about the rotation and the offensive capabilities of the job. So if you haven't played the job yet, you have your standard 3-hit combo, it's your solid barrel combo, and it'll generate one cartridge which you can then spend on another combo, either your Gnashing Fang combo or on a strong single target weapon skill in Burst Strike or an AoE weapon skill in Fated Circle. This coupled with a 20% damage buff on a 60-second cooldown and a single target and AoE dot means you have a fair bit to manage. You also have an off GCD 800 potency nuke per se called Blasting Zone and an ability which gives you 2 cartridges. One thing to keep in mind is that if you are in a normal combo and then you go into your Gnashing Fang combo, the one with the cartridge, it won't stop your normal combo, but if you do the opposite and you're in the middle of a Gnashing Fang combo and then you do one of your standard solid barrel combo skills, it will stop the Gnashing Fang combo. So that's a very basic overview of the kit, and I have to say it's quite fun. Planning your cartridges so that you always use Gnashing Fang on cooldown while trying to squeeze in as many burst strikes as you can, coupled with the timing of everything for your dot and your damage buff is pretty engaging, and it keeps you on your toes during fights. You sort of have this burst window, kind of like Warrior, where you're pressing a lot of buttons and doing a bunch of damage during your Gnashing Fang combo and weaving off GCDs, and then when that's over, you just have this downtime to kind of figure out what you're going to be doing next and planning around when your cooldowns come back up. My only complaint really is I wish the dot was part of a combo like Paladins. I personally just enjoy managing dots. It's not a very big problem, and I'm sure many people enjoy the way it plays now, but I wish there was more to manage in terms of the dot. So with that out of the way, now let's talk about some of the defensive options that the Gunbreaker brings to the table. So like all the other tanks, Gunbreaker's tank stance now only generates extra enmity, and it's called Royal Guard. You also have access to Rampart, Arm's Length, Low Blow, Provoke, Interject, Reprisal, and Shirk. I'm not going to talk too much about these just because all the tanks have them. So first up, we have Camouflage. This ability gives you a 50% increase to your parry rate as well as a flat 10% damage reduction for 20 seconds, and it's on a 90-second cooldown. Next is Aurora, which is a 200 potency hot that lasts for 18 seconds on a 60-second cooldown. Then there's Heart of Light, which is a party-wide 15% magic damage reduction for 15 seconds and is on a 90-second cooldown. Then actually the second part of your main weapon skill combo, Brutal Shell, gives you a 150 potency heal and gives you a shield equal to that healing amount. Since it has like a defensive component to it, I figured I would mention it in this section of the video. This effect lasts for 10 seconds or until the shield is broken. Heart of Stone is a single target buff that reduces self or party members' damage taken by 15% for 7 seconds on a 25-second cooldown. Now note that if you target a party member and only a party member, this does not work for yourself. If you target a party member with this skill while you have your Brutal Shell shield on yourself, you also give them the shield. Next is Nebula, or as I like to call it, Sentinel or Shadow Wall. I guess they're all pretty much the same thing. This is a 30% damage reduction for 10 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. And last we have Super Blide or Super Blide or Super something, I don't know how to say it, but this is arguably a worse version of Hollow Ground, I could say. It's the same as Hollow Ground, except it drops you down to 1 HP, and then it makes you invulnerable to damage for 8 seconds and is on a 6-minute cooldown. Note that you can still move around while the skill is active, it's not like Home Gang. Alright, so with all the abilities covered, I guess we'll kind of dive in a bit. I kind of want to start with what I like, and then kind of shift over to things that maybe I don't like so much. But I gotta say, most of these cooldowns feel pretty good. Starting out with Nebula, it's it's pretty great. I mean, there's not really much to complain about. In dungeons, I think sometimes you're going to wish that it lasted a little longer, but in trials and the eventual Savage content, it's going to be perfect for getting the job done. If you are a little bit lower on health or something, or, you know, your healers aren't healing you or whatever the case may be, or you just want to pop a bigger cooldown to help them out, it's, 30% damage reduction on a 2-minute cooldown. It's pretty solid. Now, for Heart of Light, not only does this ability have a super sick animation, but it's also great for raid-wide AoEs. At first, it might seem like it's not that great of a skill because it only reduces damage, or magic damage, excuse me. But considering that, at least historically, pretty much every raid-wide AoE that a boss does in this game is magic damage, it's going to be really, really, really useful. Of course, if Square decides to make like physical raid-wide AoEs, then obviously this skill isn't going to be great, but I don't think that'll happen. Speaking of Heart of Light, we have Heart of Stone next, and honestly, I think this might be my favorite ability in the kit. Again, in dungeons, the duration, 7 seconds, it feels like it could be a little longer there, but for what you're going to be using it for in raid content and trials, it gets the job done. Yeah, it's great. Is your Dragoon and animation lock for one of his stupid abilities? Boom! Heart of Stone. And then the fact that Brutal Shell applies to the target party member in addition to this is a nice touch. I really like that. My only problem really with this ability is I kind of wish like you could enhance it or something with one of your cartridges. Would anyone probably ever do that and lose out on personal DPS? Probably not, but I think it would be like a nice feature to have. Again, a small complaint, nothing major. This ability's killing. Aurora is nice. It's about all I have to say about it. I do feel like Gunbreaker has slightly less sustain than Warrior and Paladin overall. Warrior just has stupid amounts of healing with Nascent Flash, and then Paladin, of course, has Clemency, which is really strong. That combined with the fact that Record Scott now makes it so it's just an instant cast is pretty great. So I feel like, Gunbreaker is lacking a little bit in the healing department, but it doesn't necessarily have to have a super strong heal. It's not like a requirement to be a tank. So Aurora's nice. That's pretty much all I got to say about it. Now, I'm not sure if I'm the only person that feels this way, but Camouflage is where it just feels a little weak to me. Just a little tiny bit. The 10% flat damage reduction is really, really nice in addition to the parry rate. If it was just the parry rate, it'd be kind of meh, but the duration is really nice. It lasts for a while. It's pretty good in dungeons, and a 50% parry rate, which is basically a 50% chance to negate about 15% damage. So I guess in theory, if you parry, it's 25% damage reduction. So in that way, it's actually better than Rampart. But if you don't get the parry, it's kind of just like, eh? I find myself really using this ability a lot in conjunction with Aurora, or also using Heart of Stone with it. It's kind of in a weird spot for me. I'm not in love with the ability, and but then I was thinking about like, well, if they buffed it, but then it's like it'd be kind of too strong then. So I don't know. It's fine where it is. I don't think they necessarily need to change it. I guess I'm just not really a fan of the 50% parry rate. If it goes off, it feels good. If it doesn't, it feels kind of eh. Especially since Paladin has Sheltron, which just is flat 100%. You block everything for 6 seconds. I don't know. Maybe something where it's just 100% parry rate with no flat reduction for 12 seconds or something. I don't know. It's fine the way it is. It doesn't need to change. I just am not the biggest fan of it. It just feels a little too random for me. Last up, we have the oh shit button of Gunbreaker, the super belied. I give up trying to pronounce it. Again, I think it's kind of just like a worse version of Hollow Ground, but you could argue it's a little better because it has 1 minute less of a cooldown. So I think you could argue both ways. I think in trials, it's not really going to matter that you drop to 1 HP because your healers you're probably going to have communication with them, and they're going to know that you're going to do it. It's weird because it kind of falls in the same place as like Living Dead, where if you have a white mage and they can just instantly Benny you right back up to full, it's really, really strong. But if you have like a Scholar Astro, which with the way things are right now, that's probably not super likely. But if you have a Scholar Astro, it's going to be just a little bit harder for them to get you all the way back up. So, I guess at the tippy top optimization, they might have to use a couple more GCD heals on you if they don't have any off GCD heals available when you use it. So they could lose out on a bit of DPS doing that. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent about the ability. I don't. The only thing that I really don't like about the ability is I kind of wish it was just something a bit more original than just hollowed but you drop to 1 HP. Maybe something like it starts on and these numbers are completely just arbitrary, but maybe something where it starts on a 4-minute cooldown base and it gives you like 40% damage reduction. But then if you have 1 cartridge and you use the ability, it then increases that to 70% damage reduction, and then the cooldown increases to 5 minutes. And then if you have 2 cartridges, it gives you 100% damage reduction and a 6-minute cooldown. The ability doesn't necessarily need the change. That's just kind of like, I think it would be a bit more fun. Maybe it wouldn't be. I don't know. Maybe sacrificing DPS to have this ability be better wouldn't be fun in most people's standards. But I think something where it kind of interacts with the cartridge system a little bit more could be cool. Again, just a small grade. Nothing major. The one thing I would watch out for with this ability, though, is in dungeons. You might find yourself using this ability and then your healers are like, wait, what? And then you just die. That's happened to me quite a few times. It's a little annoying, but once people get used to seeing Gunbreaker more, I'm sure it'll not be a problem. Okay, so, after kind of going through everything in the most part, I guess, I don't know, this is the part where I come to my, conclusion on the job. And I gotta say, I like it a lot. I think it really kind of captures the gun, blade, sword shooting fantasy pretty well. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Gunlance from Monster Hunter, if you guys play those games. It's just in the fact that it's sort of a standard weapon and then there's a gun attached to it. And the rotation's honestly a lot more fun than I thought it would be. My original plan for Shadowbringers was to level Ninja to 80, and then Paladin, and then kind of decide between those two what I was going to do for raiding, because our old Paladin in the group was actually going to play Gunbreaker. However, that didn't work out because he didn't like leveling it, so he just went back to playing Paladin. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'll try Gunbreaker and see if I like it. I wasn't super keen on doing Warrior, and Dark Knight, I was a bit like, I don't know. And I wanted to try the newest job and see what it was like. And honestly, I'm having a lot of fun, and unless I really like Dark Knight leveling it up, I'm probably going to stick with Gunbreaker for raiding. Besides Camouflage, that's kind of the only ability I'm a little iffy about, But in terms of if Gunbreaker is a better main tank or off tank, at first I was leaning towards it's a better off tank because you can give that brutal shell buff to people much easier than if you're the main tank. If you're the main tank and you use that ability, and then there's a raid wide or a tank buster or literally anything like an auto attack, it's just going to immediately get eaten. So you can't really give that buff to other people as a main tank. But then again, you can just slap it on yourself, honestly on cooldown, just to give extra mitigation if you wanted to, once you know the fight really well. And that's pretty strong. And the brutal shell healing and shield that you get can honestly probably add up over the course of an 8-minute fight or whatever the case may be. So I don't know, if I had to really choose, not that it matters too much, I would still probably say it's slightly stronger as an off tank, just because you can give that brutal shell a little easier as an off tank than a main tank. But I mean, it's such a small difference, it really doesn't matter. It's gonna be able to do both fine. The other thing that could pose a problem with the job is the cooldown on the oh shit button, which is, I'm just going to call it that. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of the ability anymore. If you have a Paladin Gunbreaker comp, which is what we're going to have, I can definitely see us probably running into some problems with tank busters and being able to just flat out immune them. Whereas, Warrior's Home Gang is on what? See, Paladin's is a 7-minute cooldown. Gunbreaker's is 6. Shadow Knights. Dark Knights is 5, and then Home Gang Warriors is on 4. So, Warrior still has the shortest cooldown of them all. So that could maybe pose a problem, but we'll have to see the fights to really figure it out. And even then, as long as one of them's the off tank and they have like Sentinel or Nebula up or something, and Gunbreaker has the Heart of Stone, it probably is fine. So those are my thoughts on Gunbreaker. Thank you everyone who's made it to this point. I actually had a lot of fun making this video and capturing the footage for it and everything, and I hope you all enjoyed. I plan on doing one of these for the other 3 tanks in the game, and probably at least Ninja as well, since that was actually my main for all of A Realm Reborn and the final tier of Alexander. And then I took a brief hiatus in the first 2 tiers of Omega and then went back to it for the last tier of Omega. So I think I'll probably do a video on Ninja, especially since I think it's in an interesting place in Shadowbringers so far. So be on the lookout for that, and if you guys like what you see here, feel free to hit the subscribe button and throw a like. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys later.